Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. It's me, Niall, here giving a preview of a very intriguing super lightweight clash this Saturday night in Chicago. It's a battle of the former world champions as Regis Prograis takes on JoJo Diaz. 140 pound Chicago on the undercard of another intriguing super lightweight clash between Oscar Duarte and Kenneth Sims Jr. But yeah, a lot at stake for this one, a real last chance saloon for both men. So I'll be giving my thoughts on how I think the fight will play out and what the future might hold for both men. I'll be giving my thoughts on that, breaking down the fight, how I think it'll play out, and yeah, who I think will pick up the win. So yeah, before we get into things, please don't forget, if you're not doing so already, first of all, drop a like on this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at ESBR Boxing and follow us on all social media platforms. So yeah, Regis Prograis returns to the ring against JoJo Diaz. Prograis 36 now, coming off back-to-back losses. No real shame in it, both the world-class fighters. Devin Haney, of course, superstar, and Jack Catterall last October in Manchester, where he fell to a decision loss. And yeah, as I say, no real shame in it, but you have to look at what more does Regis Prograis have to offer to the super lightweight division. He's had a great career, 36 years old, former world champion, really exciting fighter to watch, unorthodox, but yeah, he's had a great career, of course. Title holder, ran Josh Taylor very close. A lot of people thought he beat a prime Josh Taylor in the final of the World Boxing Super Series a few years ago now. So yeah, that's the type of level that Regis Prograis was mixing of that. But yeah, you have to question now at 36, what can he offer? As I say, at his age, after a relatively long career as a professional, he doesn't have a style that lends itself to still being successful as he nears 40 years old, very reflexive style, a lot of upper body movement, very unorthodox, as I say, very speed-based defensive reflexes. And, as you get older, that's normally the first thing that leaves you, to be quite honest. So, yeah, we've seen it in the last couple of fights. He has slowed down, as I say, he has been fighting world-class fighters, but you have noticed a definite decline in speed and reflexes there against Devin Haney and Jack Catterall, although he did have a lot of, he did have a success against Jack Catterall, but yeah, there has been a definite decline in the speed of Prograis, of course, still a big puncher, still relatively quick. He's not completely slowed down like I think his opponent this weekend has, but we'll get to that. He still has, he hasn't disgraced himself in either fight, but as I say, at this stage, he's definitely on the back nine, Regis Prograis, and yeah, he just doesn't have the style to be a big player still at 140 pounds, which is, it's a shame, but he does need to win this fight against Jojo Diaz. I'm surprised to see him back in a boxing ring. After the Catterall fight, he was very vocal about, he didn't know what the future held. He mentioned bare knuckle, maybe a future in bare knuckle boxing, which I thought maybe the avenue we would have went, but, I'd probably rather him continue in boxing if that was the alternative option. I'm not a huge fan of these faded former fighters coming back into bare knuckle boxing. I think they get very, very damaged. I don't kind of. I wouldn't be the biggest fan of it as a sport, but yeah, boxing I know still has its dangers, but he's facing Jojo Diaz this weekend. Regis Prograis in the fight he needs to win. And on his opponent Jojo Diaz, also a fight that Diaz desperately needs to win if he wants any chance of another crack at one more crack at the big time. A former super featherweight world champion, very good fighter in his day, southpaw, solid, fundamentally solid, aggressive, good combination puncher. Won the title of course off Tevin Farmer, and beating Tevin Farmer is no mean feat. The run Farmer was on at that stage, and he got it done. Plagued by personal issues since that, really, in his personal life, discipline issues, substance issues, which is a real shame. And he's never been the same since, really. Lost the title on the scales before he fought Rakhimov. Although he fought to a draw in that fight, but yeah, he's been on a real slide since that. Um, at lightweight, lost six of his last eight fights. He's on a real skid. Form wise, been 2-6 in his last eight. But the names there. There's no shame in a lot of the names there. You'd lost to Devin Haney back at when Haney was at lightweight, so common opponent to Regis Prograis, lost to William Zepeda, lost to Oscar Duarte. But yeah, there's also some bad kind of losses there. He's lost the names that you wouldn't have expected him to, or when he was the favourite. His most recent loss against Abraham Montoya was a really bad one in particular. They kind of brought Montoya in to make Diaz look good, and he dropped a split decision, I believe. So yeah, he's on a real skid, JoJo Diaz, which is a shame. As I said, he has the talent. It's just personal issues plagued him for the last few years, and he's 32 now, I believe, 32, 33, and this is his last chance. But he fought last month, came back last month in a fight in Tijuana, Mexico, and looked awful. Juan Valencia Diaz, I believe, was the guy's name. Very underwhelming fighter himself. I think his record, can't remember his record, but he almost had as much losses as he did wins. And Diaz looked awful. He got the job done. Unanimous decision over 8 rounds, and he looked slow. He's never been the quickest in terms of hand speed or footwork, but he looked very slow. He didn't look in great shape. Of course, he won his world title at super featherweight. He's been at lightweight, but realistically, he's never tipped the scales at 140 pounds, and if he kept himself disciplined, he probably still would be a super featherweight. But yeah, last time out back in June, he looked out of shape. He looked slow. He looked plodding. He looked defensively poor. He was so easily hit, but he got the job done. And now he faces Regis Prograis in Chicago on Saturday night. And yeah, I don't think JoJo Diaz has anything for Regis Prograis here, as much as Prograis has slowed down. As I say, he didn't disgrace himself in the Haney or Catterall fights. He didn't win them, but he wasn't kind of beaten up badly. Well, Haney did kind of start to really put it on him at times in that fight, but he hung in there, and against Catterall he had success. He dropped Jack Catterall. He's just too much of a level above. I would have oh, excuse me. As my microphone checks out. But yeah, I would have picked him even if Jojo Diaz was kind of at his best. He's not a super lightweight. He's really not. He's a super sorry again, a super featherweight, lightweight at best. So I would have picked Prograis. Is just too big, too strong, and he's just too kind of elusive, too classy for Jojo Diaz here, in my opinion. I don't think Prograis will stop him. He's only been stopped once, Jojo Diaz. That was against Oscar Duarte. But yeah, so I think Regis Prograis, although Prograis can punch, for super lightweight, Prograis is a big puncher. Maybe I'm going to change my prediction, to be honest with you. Just looking at how bad Diaz looked last time out, back in June in Mexico, I think that yeah, I just think Prograis will be too heavy-handed and too quick for him and get it done. But yeah, the question then would be, what does Prograis have to offer? You can't see him beating any of the other champions at 140 pounds, to be quite honest with you. And I wouldn't like to see him carry on and get too badly hurt when his reflexes do completely leave him. But yeah, that's for another day, I suppose. He has Jojo Diaz to get past first this weekend in Chicago, Illinois. Real crossroads, real last chance saloon for both men in this one. So yeah, that was just my preview breakdown of the fight. Let us know what you think in the comments. Are you surprised to see Prograis back? Will he come unstuck against Diaz, or will he still have too much class for a really faded Jojo Diaz outside of his weight class here as well? So yeah, let us know what you think in the comments. Get involved down below. And as always, don't forget to drop a like on the video first of all. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at ESBR Boxing and follow us on all social media. Until next time, take care.